to Raw 4 TV. So before I get into this video, I want to give a big shout out to the brother Larry Wright for the $25 donation via the Cash App. He says, much respect. You have been putting in overtime. Absolutely, brother. Look, man, when YouTube screwed me over this summer, or whoever was responsible for doing it, I promised myself, once everything got cleared, I said, I'm going to come back with a motherfucking vengeance. I'm going to abide by their rules. You know what I'm saying? So nobody can catch me slipping. But I said, I'm going to grind like a motherfucker. So that's what I've been doing. You know what I'm saying? I took one day off, like, a couple of days ago. It was the first day I took off on YouTube in like 3 months. But other than that, man, I'm on a mission, man. I'm on a motherfucking mission. You know, I want the LDBC to be number one on here completely. We're already number one quality. I want us to be number one when it comes to quantity. All these damn rules they've done, they've all these changes and whatnot they've made to try to hush us, to push us down. Mm-mm. So that's my main motivation, and I appreciate the love that you all been showing on this channel and other channels. My other channel, excuse me, the Patreon, the love you show other brothers in the LDBC. So shout out once again to Larry. I know he's a big time supporter of my Patreon. I have 2 videos dropping on the Patreon today. So much respect to him and to everybody that's shown love. And if you can contribute, if you choose to, you can do so in the links in the description box below via the PayPal or the Cash App, or in the pinned comment in the comment section below. This is a video request that I had forgotten that I had gotten, man. And thank you for the brother that reminded me about this one. Sometimes I think the reason why I'm a little bit harder on Chris Middleton than maybe I would be, because he rocked the number 22, right? And he's won a championship. But when I see 22, man, I think of another guy, man. I'm sorry, but I think of Michael Redd. Now, unfortunately, Michael Redd didn't get to play with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Unfortunately, Michael Redd had to deal with the type of injuries that Klay Thompson has dealt with in an earlier era. And he's had back-to-back issues, that just ruined him and ended his career prematurely. I think he's still 5th all-time in total points with the Milwaukee Bucks, and he's 5th all-time in scoring average. But he should have left an even greater legacy. Michael Redd was that dude, man, and he was not heralded. He was not heralded at all when he came to NBA. I think he was the 43rd overall pick when Milwaukee selected him back in 2000. He was born in Ohio. And he was part of the U.S. national basketball team. In 2008, he was part of the Redeem team. That might have been one of his last great moments. I believe he averaged 15 points a game during that tournament play. So he does have an Olympic gold medal on his resume. Now, first when he came to Milwaukee, he didn't get a lot of playing time because, of course, he was playing behind the great Ray Allen. But during practices, Michael Redd shined. You saw the potential. He started getting a little bit more minutes. Now, for whatever fucking reason, that makes no sense to this day, George Karl did not get along with Ray Allen. I don't know why. Ray Allen seems like a nice guy. He just didn't get along with Ray Allen, which ultimately led to the trade where Ray Allen went to Seattle in exchange for a player impersonating Gary Payton by that point in his career. And that opened up the way for Michael Redd because everybody knew that Gary Payton was not going to stay in Milwaukee. And the next year, I think he went to Boston. Then I think then he went to the Lakers and then the Miami Heat for the rest of his career. But this paved the way for Michael Redd to be the man. And for like a 5 or 6 year period, Michael Redd would average almost 24 points a game for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the difference between Michael Redd and Chris Middleton is Michael Redd was much more consistent, a scorer and a shooter. Okay? Now, don't let the percentages fool you. I think they're about the same, like overall. Don't let that fool you because you got to look into the era that both these guys played in. Michael Redd played in a much more defensive era. Michael Redd didn't have a lot of, guys around him that could space the floor out. So when you got to look at Michael Redd's numbers in the context of the era that he played in, I believe he was a 38% three-point shooter, which in the mid 2000s, man, that's like shooting 45% right now. Like, it's crazy. And he would have these burst games. Like, he still holds the franchise record for most points scored in a game with 57. Broke the record that had been held for 50, at the time, for 30 something years by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which was 55, but he had 57 points. And then I think he had another 50-point game as well. But he would just have these like Klay Thompson, like explosion performances. Matter of fact, it was Michael Redd that had the record for most 3-point field goals in a quarter, which was 8, until Klay Thompson broke that record back in 2015. I think when he had that 37 points in that quarter. So that's what Michael Redd was capable of. Now, defensively, he wasn't great. Um, he wasn't Magic Johnson with the basketball. He wasn't a great playmaker. But what he did when it came to shooting the rock, when he got into a zone, you never saw a better shooter. Those few years when he was at his peak, you never saw a better shooter than Michael Redd. He was that dude. You just wish that he could have played longer, man. Another thing about Michael Redd, too, that you have to wonder is when he signed that big contract with the Milwaukee Bucks, I think it was 2006, it might have been. You have to wonder what would have happened if he had instead took less money and signed with the Cavaliers. Now, he's from Ohio. I believe that's where he lives at now. I believe he's a rather successful businessman now. But what happens if Michael Redd takes less money at that stage of his career and go plays with LeBron James? Would he have been enough in hindsight to push LeBron to a finals appearance with against Kobe and LeBron instead of him losing to Boston, losing to Orlando? I don't know. I would think so, being that they were already a top 3-point shooting team with what they had. I would think LeBron at the peak of his powers, playing with a guy that have been the ultimate catch and shoot player, you have to wonder about that. You know what I'm saying? But ultimately he did not. And I think it was after the Olympics in 2000. I think it was 2009. I think it was 2009, 2010 when he suffered an ACL and MCL rupture in his knee. It took him like a year and a half to come back from that, and then he ruptured it again. I think both. And when you rupture it again, it's pretty much the end. He was able to come back and play with Phoenix, and he signed with the Phoenix Suns. He was somewhat effective, but he was laboring. You could tell he just wasn't moving right. And I think it was sometime in 2013, Michael Redd retired. You know, and I remember being really, really sad at the time that he retired because I knew that he had, I knew that he had Hall of Fame potential. I knew that he had that potential to be that type of player. Now, I'm not saying Jordan, Elijah one, no, but he had that like Ray Allen type potential. But he never linked up with another great player. Maybe if he links up with LeBron James, the game is easier to him. The load is lightened on him, and maybe he plays longer. I tell you one thing. I gotta get in one little joke about Michael Redd. And I remember what I'm talking about. This is when he was younger. This is like probably like 2001. He had the freshest cut. You know what I'm saying? And then by 2007, I remember looking at Michael Redd in the game, and I said, "What the to his hairline? That shit was way up there." And I remember they showed the back of Michael Redd's head, man. He had a big ass bald spot. I said, "Oh hell no, man! You better cut that shit down." So I think the internet started clowning him a little bit back then. It was social media back then, but not to the extent it is today. But you saw some websites related to basketball clowning him and shit. And I noticed, the next year or so he started cropping that bit shorter. You know, this is back before people were so sensitive about every fucking thing. So I'm going bald. So it's like I'm I'm afflicted with the same shit. So, but look, he averaged 19 points a game for his career, 20 points a game. I think almost exactly for the Milwaukee Bucks. Um, like I said, man, he in his prime, 2003 to 2008, great scorer. Um, I would put him in that era second to Ray Allen as a shooter slash scorer. Second to Ray Allen. He was more consistent than Chris Middleton. And, I could only imagine what he could do in today's NBA. You know what I'm saying? With the rules, deep defenders are more handcuffed today. The spacing is better. I could only imagine the type of numbers Michael Redd would put up today. You know, uh, and let me say this. Let me say this too. Anybody that says, well, it's easy to put up big numbers on bad teams. Well, that's true, but with Chris Middleton, all right, the 1 year where he led the team in score, which is 2015-16, the Bucks went 33-49. Now, Michael Redd, when he was the first option, there were some bad years. But he didn't have a Giannis. He didn't have, these other guys on his team like that. This is when the Bucks truly sucked. And even though he was the first option and oftentimes their primary option, he still was rather efficient for the era, for the times. So like I'm saying, if you put another guy on the team that's a superstar with Michael Redd, I can only imagine. That's why I added that little tidbit about him playing with playing with prime LeBron James. I can only imagine his efficiency on the offensive end, at least, playing with a LeBron James. But anyway, just want to show a little bit of love to Michael Redd. Those of you who remember him, tell me what you guys observed about him and remember about him.